Daily Guide. The next full moon is the Wolf Moon, the Ice or Old Moon, the moon after Yule, the start of Prayag Kumbh Mela, Shakambhari Purnima, Posh Purnima, the Thiruvathirai or Arudra Darasanam festival moon, and Duruthupoya. Graphic showing the phases of the moon for January 2025. From left to right: first quarter on January 6th, full moon on January 13th, third quarter on January 21st, and new moon on January 29th. Each phase is depicted with a realistic lunar image against a black background. The next full moon will be Monday evening, January 13, 2025, appearing opposite the Sun in Earth-based longitude at 5:27 p.m. Est. This will be Tuesday from the South Africa and Eastern European time zones eastward across the remainder of Africa, Europe, Asia, Australia, etc. to the international date line in the mid-Pacific. The moon will appear full for about 3 days around this time, from Sunday evening and possibly the last part of Sunday morning into Wednesday morning. On the night of the full moon, for most of the continental USA as well as parts of Africa, Canada, and Mexico, the moon will pass in front of the planet Mars. The Maine Farmer's Almanac began publishing Native American names for full moons in the 1930s. Over time these names have become widely known and used. According to this almanac, as the full moon in January, this is the wolf moon, from the packs of wolves heard howling outside the villages amid the cold and deep snows of winter. European names for this moon include the ice moon, the old moon, and, as the full moon after the winter solstice, the moon after Yule. Yule was a 3 to 12-day festival near the winter solstice in pre-Christian Europe. In the 10th century, King Haakon I associated Yule with Christmas as part of the Christianization of Norway, and this association spread throughout Europe. The exact timing of this pre-Christian celebration is unclear. Some sources now associate Yule with the 12 days of Christmas, so that the moon after Yule is after Twelfth Night on January 6. Other sources suggest that Yule is an old name for the month of January, so the moon after Yule is in February. In the absence of more reliable historic information, I'm going with the full moon after the winter solstice as the moon after Yule. This full moon corresponds with the start of the 44-day festival Prayag Kumbh Mela, also known as Mahakumbh. This Hindu pilgrimage and festival is held every 12 years in the Indian city of Prayagraj at the confluence of 3 rivers, the Ganges, the Yamuna, and the mythical Sarasvati. It is expected to draw around 400 million visitors. Similar Kumbh celebrations are held approximately every 12 years at the convergence of 3 rivers in 3 other Indian cities: Nashik, upcoming in 2027, Ujjain in 2028, and Haridwar in 2033. In the Hindu calendar, this full moon is Shakambhari Purnima, the last day in the 8-day Shakambhari Navratri holiday that celebrates the goddess Shakambhari. In the Purnamanta tradition that ends months on the full moon day, this full moon is Posh Purnima, the last day of the Hindu month of Posh. The day after Posh Purnima is the start of the month of Magha, a period of austerity. Bathing in the holy waters of India is an important activity for both Shakambhari Navratri and Magha. This full moon corresponds with the Thiruvathirai or Arudra Darasanam festival, celebrated by Hindus in the Indian states of Kerala and Tamil Nadu. For the Buddhists of Sri Lanka, this is Duruthupoya, which commemorates Siddhartha Gautama Buddha's first visit to Sri Lanka. In many lunar and lunisolar calendars, the months change with the new moon, and full moons fall in the middle of the lunar month. This full moon is in the middle of the 12th and final month of the Chinese Year of the Rabbit. The new moon on January 29th will be Chinese New Year, the start of the Year of the Snake. This full moon is in the middle of Tevet in the Hebrew calendar and Rajab, the 7th month of the Islamic calendar. Rajab is one of the 4 sacred months in which warfare and fighting are forbidden. As usual, the wearing of suitably celebratory celestial attire is encouraged in honor of the full moon. Take care in the cold weather and take advantage of these early sunsets to enjoy and share the wonders of the night sky. And avoid starting any wars. Here are the other celestial events between now and the full moon after next, with times and angles based on the location of NASA headquarters in Washington, D.C. As winter continues in the Northern Hemisphere, the daily periods of sunlight continue to lengthen. Our 24-hour clock is based on the average length of a day, with the solar days near the solstices longer than those near the equinoxes. For Washington, D.C. and similar latitudes, I've not checked for other areas. The latest sunrise of the year, ignoring daylight saving time, occurred on January 4th. Monday, January 13th, the day of the full moon, morning twilight will begin at 6:24 a.m. EST, sunrise will be at 7:26 a.m., solar noon will be at 12:17 p.m. when the sun will reach its maximum altitude of 29.8 degrees, sunset will be at 5:08 p.m., and evening twilight will end at 6:11 p.m. By Wednesday, February 12th, the day of the full moon after next, morning twilight will begin at 6:04 a.m., sunrise will be at 7:03 a.m., solar noon will be at 12:23 p.m. when the sun will reach its maximum altitude of 37.7 degrees, sunset will be at 5:43 p.m., and evening twilight will end at 6:41 p.m. This should be a good time for planet watching, especially with the backyard telescope. Venus, Jupiter, Mars, Saturn, and Uranus will all be in the evening sky. Brightest will be Venus, appearing in the southwestern sky. With the telescope you should be able to see it shift from half full to a 29% illuminated crescent during this lunar cycle as it brightens and moves closer to the Earth. Venus will reach its brightest for the year just after the full moon after next. Second in brightness will be Jupiter in the eastern sky. With the telescope you should be able to see Jupiter's 4 bright moons, Ganymede, Callisto, Europa, and Io, noticeably shifting positions in the course of an evening. Jupiter was at its closest and brightest in early December. Third in brightness will be Mars, low in the east-northeastern sky. Mars will be at its closest and brightest for the year a few days after this full moon. Fourth in brightness will be Saturn, appearing near Venus in the southwestern sky. With the telescope you should be able to see Saturn's bright moon Titan and maybe its rings. The rings are appearing very thin and will be edge onto the Earth in March 2025. We won't get the classic view of Saturn showing off its rings until 2026. Saturn was at its closest and brightest in early September and will appear its closest to Venus 2.2 degrees apart the evening of January 18th. Fifth in brightness and technically bright enough to see without a telescope, if you are in a very dark location and your eyesight is better than mine, will be Uranus high in the southeastern sky. Uranus was at its closest and brightest in mid-November. During this lunar cycle, these planets will be rotating westward around the pole star Polaris, with Venus shifting more slowly, making them easier to see earlier in the evening, and friendlier for backyard stargazing, especially if you have young ones with earlier bedtimes.